are Locked On Spurs, your daily San Antonio Spurs podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
It's time for another fan episode right here on Locked On Spurs, and we're going to be discussing the coaching future of Quinn Snyder in San Antonio. Welcome back to Locked On Spurs right here on the Locked On NBA Network. I'm your host, Jeff Garcia, Spurs writer for Quin Snyder San Antonio. Glad to have you back. Hey, it's going to be quite a pretty cool episode. We're going to be doing another fan episode. A fan is going to be coming on and talking about possible future Spurs head coaching candidate, Quinn Snyder, as well as just the roster. And then to end the show, former Spur Robert Horry joined the Locked On NBA show and is talking about tonight's beginning of the Celtics and Warriors NBA Finals. You know, Derek White with Celtics, Ime, Will Hardy, former Spur Horry. So, yeah, look forward to that on this episode of Locked On Spurs. And we thank you for making Locked On Spurs your first listen each and every day, free and available wherever you get podcasts. So who is the mystery Spurs fan joining us today? He is back for another round. He is Erik Hicks, longtime Spurs fan. Erik, welcome back to Locked On Spurs.
Hey, thanks for having me back, Jeff.
Hey, truth be told, everybody, this is like what, take 3, take 4? Because we had some issues to start the show. That was funny.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it was a little bit different.
Yeah. But hey, as long as it's working, that's all we care about. So, look, Erik, you're a veteran at this. You know how these work. But for those of y'all who are brand new to Locked On Spurs, fan episodes is where a fan comes in to represent the entire fan base on a couple questions that are on the minds of the fans. And one of them is Quinn Snyder. News came out recently that Snyder's future in Utah is kind of on shaky grounds, may or may not be back. And Spurs fans kind of perked up immediately and were like, whoa, wait a minute here. Now there's this bubbling up over here in Utah. He's a former Spurs coach, or in this case with the Austin Spurs. The Spurs reportedly love him, Quinn Snyder. Could he be back in San Antonio? And then later on the show, Erik is going to be talking about the Spurs roster as a whole and what fans think about it. Erik, are you ready to tackle today's topics?
Let's do it.
All right, let's get into it. So, as I just said right now, Erik, Quinn Snyder reportedly is on kind of iffy ground with the Jazz. And look, there is a segment of Spurs fans that are saying, hey, you know, Pop, once he's gone, hello, Quinn Snyder. Because in that report, too, they're saying that he's going to take a year off to recharge. Kind of lines up with the whole rumor mill about Popovich maybe coaching his final season. Big question here, Erik. How do you feel about Quinn Snyder possibly being the next Spurs head coach? And how's the fan base thinking about this topic?
I think I believe I think the fan base would be okay with it. First, you know, this Pop doesn't look like he's going anywhere anytime soon. You know what I mean? So everybody could just calm down, because I know somebody might throw some tomatoes at me or something. But ultimately, ultimately the fan base, I don't think that the fan base, speaking for the fan base now, I don't think that they would have a problem with it. And the reason for that is, you know, the fan base, just like the rest of the NBA fans, are starting to see that this Pop coaching tree, you know, it's real. You know, that's what they see. They see Ime, they see Budenholzer, Monty, you know, everybody who's come. And you know what? I'm gonna go ahead and put Becky Hammond in. I just don't.
Sure, why not?
Yep. Leave her out like that. Yeah, but you know, they see it and they see that it's a real thing. You know, you look at the finals for this year. You know, they're 2 from the tree. You look at the finals from last year. It's 2 from the tree. So there's no denying it that there's something there. And you know, being that Quinn Snyder does come from that tree, I think they would be okay with it. I don't see it being like them getting happy if it's like a home run, but you know, they're seeing that, you know what I mean? If it comes from the tree, you know what, I think they would be okay with it. And I would be okay with it. He was, you know, when you look at his record, he wasn't a bad coach at all. You know what I mean? And like I said, you said he has history with the Spurs, you know, with the Austin Toros. Sat down. He was there under Mike Brown, Messina, I believe even Budenholzer with the Hawks. So yeah, they know who he is, and I think that they would be okay with it. If Pop, first and foremost decided, hey, you know what, I'm gonna go ahead and ride off into the sunset.
Sure. But what does Erik Hicks feel about it? Is Erik Hicks on board?
Well, I would be okay with it, honestly. When you talk to the Spurs fans and around the city, there's different kinds of fans when it comes to Pop and coaching. That's it's also a touchy subject. You have some fans who are the saying, they were like, in Pop we trust. So
Yeah.
anything that has to do with that, they're just like. Then you got some Spurs fans who, like you said, they see the tree, and I think the majority of them are like that. And they were like, oh, well, as long as we get somebody from the tree, because we see that it works and there is something there. And then there's some Spurs fans that they believe that Pop should have retired maybe like 1 or 2 years ago, and
Right.
they would be happy to see him go. They would be happy to take him to Vormir if they could have a chance. But no, me personally, I think as long as they came from the Spurs tree, because like I said, we've seen Ime, Monty. Oh my goodness,
Yeah.
would love to have one of those, but nobody's going to give them up anytime soon. So
Right.
but yeah, I would give it. I wouldn't mind giving it a shot.
Now look, let's look at some facts here. Fact, Quinn Snyder has not led the Jazz to the promised land. He, even though having the Defensive Player of the Year multiple times, Rudy Gobert, Joel Ingles, Donovan Mitchell on the roster, always, a great regular season team fizzles out in the playoffs, and hasn't really produced the hardware yet. That being a title in Utah. Do you think that takes away a lot of the shine from possibly Quinn Snyder coming to San Antonio? Again, this is all speculation. We're just putting it out there. But do you think that's going to be a big knock as why fans are going to push back on Snyder coming to San Antonio?
I think it could. But like you said, they have to. He's been with the Jazz for what, 8 years now. In the past 6 years, he's taken them to the playoffs. And the Spurs fans, we haven't gone to the dance in a little while. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's been about 3-4 years or something like that.
Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that would have some like pushback. You know what I mean? And understandably so. I could see that. But I just think it's that tree that would, if it were to happen, that would help them out a lot. Being already part of the organization. I think that the Spurs fans would be okay with that, and me personally too. Yeah, I think I would be okay with that.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many pros and cons. Maybe a little bit more pros. He is younger, obviously, than Pop. He's been through the Spurs system. He knows the Spurs way. He knows the Spurs culture. As a matter of fact, I believe that he still holds the well, back then it was the D League, but the G League now, for the most call-ups in under his watch. And he's a very, very big on player development. And that's what the Spurs need right now, is a player developmental coach. Not to say Pop isn't, obviously he is, but I think they still need to keep that going. Look, and other coaches have come up short despite having phenomenal teams. Look at Jerry Sloan. When was the last? Jerry Sloan didn't win a title in his time in Utah. So it happens. It happens. So yeah, I think I think it's real close, in my opinion, with Spurs fans. I think there's more leaning towards Quinn, but I get those that are saying like, no, we want nothing to do with him. What has he done in Utah? Great records, regular season records, and no, fruit to bear in the postseason. I mean, at least Jerry Sloan took the Jazz to the finals. Quinn Snyder didn't. So yeah, it's right there. But it's just a little weird, isn't it? Huh? Interesting. All of a sudden, Quinn Snyder is having issues in Utah, and maybe he's reportedly going to take a year sabbatical, and Popovich could be on his last year next season. So it's something to watch for. The future of the Spurs coaching spot with Popovich. Obviously, the light at the end of the tunnel is coming faster.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, so. Definitely the stars are like aligning up, like if it wanted to happen,
Yeah, if it wanted to happen. Yeah. So keep an eye on for that. But we're not done talking with Erik. We're going to be back with him to discuss the Spurs roster. Does he do this first fan base believe it'll be the same once the ball goes up in the air next season? But I want to talk to you about Rock Auto. This episode is brought to you by Rock Auto. With their increasing numbers of makes and models, it's now impossible for you, well, at least for your local chain auto parts store, to keep up with all the parts you need. Like, you have computers with access to rockauto.com at home, in your pocket, on your laptop. Just go to rockauto.com. Save time and money when using Rock Auto. Rock Auto is a family business serving do-it-yourselfers for over 20 years. And Rock Auto prices, they're reliably low for each and every customer. You want to go explore their easy-to-use website today. Find the solution to all your auto part needs. You need brake parts, they got it. Tail lamps, they got it. Motor oil, they got it. Even got new carpet. rockauto.com. You want to go to rockauto.com right now and see all the parts available for your car or truck. And when you go there, right, Locked On in the How Did You Hear About Us box, so they know that we sent you. An amazing selection of reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need, rockauto.com. And we are back with Erik Hicks on this fan episode of Locked On Spurs. And shortly after this, you'll be hearing from former Spur Robert Horry about the NBA Finals. But we have an important favor to ask of you. We put together a survey so we can learn more about listeners like you and make our favorite Locked On podcast even better. This is your opportunity to tell us what you like and don't like about Locked On Podcasts. Go to lockedonpodcast.com/survey right now to get started. It won't take very long, and everyone that completes the survey can qualify for a chance to win one of 10 $100 Ticketmaster gift cards. Go take our audience survey. Go to lockedonpodcast.com/survey. Thank you for your help. Let's go and get back at it. Erik, the Spurs roster could possibly look a lot different next season. There's the unknown future of Lonnie Walker in San Antonio. As of right now, there's 3 first-round picks. Do the Spurs bring in 3 new rookies? What about trading? Jakob Poeltl's on a final contract season. It could be an enticing piece to trade. Josh Richardson as well. The list goes on and on. We'll start off with the overall fan base thoughts. Do fans believe that when they go to the AT&T Center or watch the Spurs on TV, they'll be looking at a completely different roster?
I wouldn't say like completely different roster, but they want to see some kind of change, and I think that they are going to see some kind of change, and I mean that in a good way. And they're excited, the fan base, and they have every right to be excited. I mean, there's a whole bunch of options out there right now. There's a whole bunch of different directions the Spurs can go in. If you ask 4 Spurs fans, well, what would you like to see happen next year, you're going to probably get like about 4 different answers. But that's what makes it exciting, is that they have, all these different directions that they can go. And I think that the fan base is excited because they know something's going to happen. They don't know what, you know what I mean? And I think everybody can agree that, something's going to happen where, like you said, whether it be trades, maybe throwing a bag at Levine or Ayton or, but just something's going to happen. Some are more realistic than others. Trading up, trading out, or trading up in the draft, trading down. Nobody. The Spurs fan base kind of, they're excited about that, and I think, like I said, they have every right to be. It's almost like they hear a whole bunch of banging going on in the shed. You know what I mean? And they don't know what's going to come out of there, but they see that the lights are on. They see that something's going on. You know what I mean? And so, yeah, that's how that goes.
But what about you, Erik? You as a Spurs fan, are you expecting big changes? Are you expecting just tweaks?
I would say I'm in between big changes and tweaks. That's what I would like to see. I'm a big fan of, if somebody would ask me, what would I like? I'm a big fan of, I would try to get up as far as I can in the draft. Any which way. And I'm also one of those ones where I was like, hey, all options got to be put on the table. That's just me. You know what I mean? But I do believe that we're going to see in between tweaks and like major changes come next year. That's just what I believe. We got, like I said, that number 9 pick, whether they keep it or whether they go up, maybe package that with some, up somebody.
Sure.
That remains to be seen. But would somebody consider that a major change? I don't know. In somebody's eyes, maybe they do. Depending on who they would be giving up, maybe packaging. I guess I would answer that.
Do Spurs fans expect Lonnie Walker to be back or no?
Oh man, that's killing me because I don't think they expect Lonnie Walker to be back,
Right.
honestly. And I remember the last time when I was on, we were talking about that, and I was like, man, I kind of like went all in with him. And you see him doing all these different things around town. Um,
Yeah, he's
you
being
made a
very active in the very active in
in
the
the
community this
community,
offseason, like big
right?
time. Like he amped it up.
Yeah, you see it, and I think the Spurs fans are kind of like, it's almost like they, they're happy and they want to, they're happy for him, they're happy for what he's doing, but they're kind of just like, oh, like is it really going to happen, or you know what I mean? But
Mhm.
yeah,
Yeah, I
we'll see
mean,
what happens.
if you look at this, yeah, you look at the Spurs roster. You're right. Maybe there could be small moves, but even those small moves could be big. Look how many expiring contracts they have on the roster. Josh Richardson. I mean, you can't tell me a team wouldn't want him. A contending
Right.
team. I mean, Jakob Pertl. I mean, teams are asking about him last season ahead of the trade deadline. Toronto was asking for them. Again, a very good center in the league, a defensive center. He's got the praise of Joel Embiid. Can't tell me he could be enticed or be an enticing piece. Even throw-ins like your Zach Collins, a throw-in, your
Mm-hmm.
Keita Bates-Diop. He's on an expiring contract, and you got still young players that you could still flip uh, and make major moves. I do believe the Spurs got to get aggressive this offseason
Mm-hmm.
because they're trying to keep up with the Joneses. I mean, just look at the
Right.
draft, Eric. I
Right.
mean, look who's ahead of them in the pecking order. You have New Orleans is ahead of them in the draft. You have OKC with all their picks. Who knows they're going to turn it around. Houston, in their own division, they have the third overall pick. So they're bringing in talent, and the Spurs are just now starting to see what they can do, starting to rebuild.
Mm-hmm.
But you
Mm-hmm.
look at a lot of teams, they have a power player. You look at Doncic, your Jason Tatum's. Um, do you think Spurs fans would be okay if they were to find out via me or a press release that maybe they've traded, names that they fell in love with, like a Devin Vassell, a Keldon Johnson, if they're bringing in power players?
I think that they would. I think that they
Yeah.
would, and it's like you said, well, Spurs fans understand, that they've been living in what they call it purgatory for like the last couple of years, and they understand, they see they've wanted change, and like you said, I believe that they understand that they were like sometimes they're gonna have to make aggressive moves in order to get out of that spot. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And so and that you also have these set of group of Spurs fans that for like the past couple of years they would kind of like jump up and down and shout, be like, what are we doing? What are we doing? Like what's the game plan? And they would kind of give they would get pretty upset, and rightfully so, because there was a whole bunch of times they'd be like, what are we doing? We're just gonna do the same thing over and over again. And then now that this is happening, is this very exciting off season, I think everybody, like I said, everybody's excited, and what I don't want to see happen is just this off season ends and then everything just stays the same. And with
Right.
all these options that everything has, I seriously doubt that would happen.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure I can't see that happening. But
Yeah.
if for some reason then if that happened, that I think the Spurs fans would lose their minds. But no, they're all pretty much just excited right now.
Yeah, exactly. The Spurs cannot stand pat. They got to get aggressive in this rebuild, and it starts right now. With all that money the Spurs have, over $30 million to throw at players or a player in a max deal.
Right.
Still flippable players that they got, and all those expiring contracts, and 3 first-round picks, and a second-round pick in this current NBA draft. The Spurs, they have options to shorten this
Man,
rebuild.
that tree just keeps going out and out, doesn't it? It's just, there's so many things that they can do.
Yeah, exactly. Now, before we let Erik, go. I want to talk to you about betonline.net. You want to go to betonline.net. Why? Because it's your number one source for all your betting and stats and sports information. For all the latest sports developments right there at betonline.net, including odds and news, this year's basketball championship matchup. You got the NHL, conference finals, Major League Baseball, fighting news, MMA, UFC to boxing. Everything's there for you at betonline.net. BetOnline is your continued source for all your sporting wagering information, including live betting, esports, and more. And they already have odds on if Ayton is going to come to San Antonio or if Levine is going to come to San Antonio. Go to betonline.net right now. Head to the website today. Use your mobile device to learn more about the trends and action. BetOnline, where the game starts. All right, Erik, I want to thank you for hopping on this episode of Locked On Spurs. Tell everybody how they can get a hold of you.
Yeah, it's at Hicks Erik 7. They want to, like I said, like the last time, they just want to, just send messages or, talk Spurs, also talk cards, or, maybe somebody wants to throw a random tomato at me. They can go ahead and do it there, and, just feel free.
What's your latest basketball card or just card acquisition?
Actually, I've been ripping boxes of baseball. Baseball, for some reason, right now is pretty hot. Yeah. I really haven't caught anything worth mention, but yeah, that's where I've been really concentrating.
It's gonna happen. Your next pack you pull is gonna have that gem in there. I know what it is.
Oh, I will send you the picture of it if it does. I hope you're right.
Again, he is Erik Hicks. He told you how to get a hold of him. Now it's my turn. Subscribe to Locked On Spurs wherever you get your favorite podcast, Google Play, Stitcher, iTunes. The list goes on, and even YouTube. We're now on YouTube, and check it out there. And thanks again for making Locked On Spurs your first listen each and every day. Go check out Locked On NBA Big Board. Host Rafael Barlow from NBA Draft Junkies and author of the NBA Big Board newsletter is joined by Richard Stayman, Sam Ferris, and Leif Thulin, giving fans an in-depth look into the NBA draft, mock draft player rankings, and, of course, big boards. It's free and available wherever you get podcasts. Very important right now. Spurs fans are definitely keeping an eye on big boards and mock drafts as we speak. So, again, Erik, thank you for taking time. We appreciate you always repping the fan base on these fan episodes. And up next is former Spur Robert Horry. He's going to be talking about those, I guess what Erik, those Boston Spurs, practically. That's what they are. With Ime Hardy and Derek. The Boston Celtics, Golden State Warriors. Final starts tonight. Here is former Spur Robert Horry talking about the big game and the big series. So for Erik Hicks, I am Jeff Garcia. We're going to put a lock on this episode of Locked On Spurs.
The Golden State Warriors are minus 150, the favorites in the NBA Finals against the Boston Celtics. Joining me now, Robert Horry, 7-time NBA champion, is here courtesy of BetOnline. Check out BetOnline for all the up-to-date lines on the NBA Finals, Finals MVP, Finals props, and each and every game line. This is great to have you here. Why do you think, because the line has moved a little bit in the Celtics' favor, why do you think there are people that like the Celtics matchup against the Warriors?
Because the smart people know defense wins championships. And if you look at the Celtics team, they got two players on that team that made the all-defensive team. Smart, of course, defensive player of the year, but Robert Williams is one of those guys that is an eraser. He can block shots. He can, he can erase a lot of mistakes that you make on the perimeter. And you think about, you got Brown, Tatum, and Smart, who can get up on people defensively and funnel them to that guy. Next thing you know, it's getting blocked. And if you look at the way, Hartford has been playing, he's turned back the hands of time. He's blocking shots again. So overall, I think that the Celtics is a better defensive team than the Warriors, because even though you have Draymond Green, Klay Thompson is not the Klay Thompson of old who can do the things he used to be able to do. And so I just think that's a big key for them, for the Celtics, that is.
How do you see Defensive Player of the Year Marcus Smart matching up with Steph Curry? Is that going to be something where you see that Marcus is going to pick him up 94 feet? Like, how do you think Smart is going to approach that assignment if he does get that assignment, which we assume he's going to?
But you know what? I don't think it's going to be a one-man job. If you look at the Celtics, they 1, 2, 3 are all athletic guys, and you go to the 2, Jalen, and go to Tatum, they get taller. It's like the bars on a cell phone. And I think even though they like to do a lot of switching, I think they're perfect for this matchup. It's a perfect matchup for the Celtics, and when they got to guard them, because Clay is going to be constantly moving. And so sort of, not the same as a Jimmy Butler or Tyler Hero, but I think what they just did against the Heat is like a prelude to what they're going to do. And so I think they're going to be fine defensively, switching and getting ready for Steph.
It sounds like you like the Celtics in this one.
All my Laker fans are going to be mad at me because they say you cannot wear anything green. You can never root for the Celtics. I'm not rooting for the Celtics. I would like to see my former teammate, Ime Udoka, win his first championship, so I would like for that to happen. But, I just think being the basketball mindset, I just think that there's a good chance the Celtics could win this thing.
All right, so we have some odds here. Celtics in 6 is plus 375. Celtics in 7 is plus 650. If people are going to bet on it, what is your prediction? If you like Boston, 6, 7?
Hey, you know what? If you try to make some money, right? that's why you gamble. And so I would go with the Celtics in 7 because I think the Celtics have been a battle-tested team on the road. They've won a lot of games on the road. They just won the Eastern Conference on the road, and so I think they're ready. Not saying everybody will say, well, the Heat is a different monster than, the Warriors and blah, blah, blah. But I still think it all boils down to having confidence and playing well on the road and believing that you can win on the road.
There's also been this discussion now, especially among Celtics fans, about what this Celtics team has had to face, particularly who Jason Tatum has had to face. Kevin Durant in the first round, Giannis Antetokounmpo in the second round, Jimmy Butler on a heater, no pun intended, for Miami, and now Steph Curry. You're talking about at least 3 pantheon guys who are all-time great players. Who do you think has the most on the line legacy-wise in this series? For whom would that one title, you won 7, who would that one title mean the most for?
I'm going to go off script a little bit, and I'm going to stop people from thinking this is going to be the greatest run ever by the Celtics. That's not true, because you got Hornacek, Karl Malone, you got Kevin Johnson, Charles Barkley, you got Dennis Rodman, MVP, David Robinson, then you got Shaquille and Penny. Now that is the greatest run back in '95. So when people say this might be the greatest run, stop it. You know what I'm saying? Because all these teams was 55, 50 plus win teams. And so I just think if you look at this game and you have to pick an MVP, of course it's going to be Tatum, but this run that the Celtics are on is incredible. Don't get me wrong, because they've been able to win on the road, which is key, because you have to win on the road in order to win championship. That's unless you have home court advantage and you protect your home court. But I just think overall, when you look at the makeup of these two teams, they're similar. Golden State Warriors, they were the Celtics 6-7 years ago when they first entered the playoffs. And nobody thought they could win a championship. Next thing you know, they win a championship. Then the following season, they win all these games and don't win a championship. And then they get KD, then they win 2 more. But I think if you look at the Celtics, there are so many similarities with these teams that people are always going to say, oh, let's go with the veteran leadership. Let's go with the fan favorite and Steph. Let's think about it. Because everybody wants Steph to win, because we know he got robbed one time with the MVP in the finals. And then he took a step back and let KD come in to his team, which is Steph's team, and take 2 MVPs. And so I do think Steph has a lot to prove, and his legacy is on the line when it comes to this, because all the chatter now is about him not having a MVP in the finals, which we all know he was robbed and won. So let's be real about that.
Mm-hmm. I'm looking at these MVP odds as you're talking about the MVP, and we expect Curry and Tatum right at the top in terms of the odds. You're not getting really good value there. I'm looking at Jaylen Brown 10-1. Yeah. I'm looking at Draymond 22-1. Like, if he really turned it up defensively, people forget in that game 7 against the Cavs, he had a triple-double in that game. He was the best Warrior on the floor in that game. I'm looking at Marcus Smart at 40-1. It seems like you can get some good value. And we've seen, including in this Warriors run, that it's not always the stars who win these finals MVPs.
It's true. For me, if I wanted to take the odds, I'm going to eliminate the top 3 automatically. And I don't think Clay is, Clay is a game 5, game 6 type of player, but Me, I would go with Andrew Wiggins. If I had to pick someone with the odds, I would go with Andrew Wiggins, who is 20-1. And think about it. He has started to come into his own.
Yep.
After that dunk on Luka, all of a sudden this dude is smiling big. He's enthusiastic. He's playing hard, and he's an all-star. I think some people forget he was an all-star. I think this is a good way, the biggest stage, to show everybody that the all-star committee didn't make a mistake. So if I had to take all the, because I don't think Draymond Green, he doesn't shoot enough, and he's gonna have to guard too many people, so he's gonna be all over the board. So if you look down that list of people and you want to say odds maker, to me, I would take Andrew Wiggins 20-1.
That is, I mean, that's bold. I love it. I think you're right that he seems to be a different player. Just in the Warriors, just in Golden State, he seems to have been unlocked a little bit. Whether that's Steve Kerr, whether that's just him feeling more comfortable. We're talking about legacy, and you have been on some teams that have gone on these multi-year runs that have been what we might consider dynastic, right? There have been some discussions here. If the Warriors win one, that because it's the Clay, Steph, Draymond core with Steve Kerr, that this has to be considered part of the Warriors run and that we have to call them a dynastic team. Where do you fall on that discussion? If they win one, are they a dynasty?
You know what? I will put them in that category as a dynasty. Because they was riddled with injuries,
right?
2 years, Clay was out, then Steph went out. You say, okay, we'll give them a Phil Jackson asterisk by those 2 years. But if they're able to get back to the mountaintop and win this year, I would put them. You got one more step to be a dynasty, and then if they go to the finals again, then I would give them a dynasty. But think about this: they gave us a dynasty in the Lakers. We won 3 in a row. And next thing you know, they dismantle a team, they go back and lose. It's considered a dynasty. So, to me, there's only been, 3 dynasties in this: Bulls, the Celtics, and the Lakers, because they're in a situation where they went 6+ championships. That's where you look at. But in this day, in this era, you can give them a dynasty.
I think I would consider the Spurs, the Tim Duncan, Greg Popovich Spurs in that mix, but they never won back-to-back titles. And so it depends on how you want to qualify it. Sustained success, not always enough. I think if you're a Boston fan, you're going, why can't we have that sustained run? We've got these 2 young superstars, Marcus Smart, Defensive Player of the Year, who's coming into his own a little bit defensively. It seems like they've unlocked some things with him as their pure point guard in initiating offense because he doesn't have to create for everyone. They've got Tatum and Brown who can create for themselves. I mean, what do you think the chances are that they could be not the next dynasty, but the next team that you have to deal with in the Eastern Conference? Like, okay, they're going to be there every year until further notice.
I think you look down that line and you says, okay, Tatum, first team, max. Brown, max. Smart, max. These are super max contracts these guys potentially can get. Right. So now since I cover the Lakers got $40 million guys, $40 million guys. They can't get nobody else on the team unless they do some hell of a drafting, and they get those guys that's going to be there. But it boils down to payday, man. If you're going to stick around and get paid, or you're going to have that one falter and say, we didn't win a championship, we need to make a move because, they exploited us in this area. We need to get someone in, and they trade one of those guys. People do dumb things like that. Well, GMs, I should say. So I think they have the potential to make a long run. They're just going to have to stick together and do what a Tim Duncan would do and say, I'm going to take less money so you can sign a Tony Parker, you sign a Manu Ginobili. But are these guys now, selfless enough where they say, hey, you know what? I don't want to make $40 million. I'll make $30 million. I don't think so. I think every guy now is trying to get their bag so they can say, you know what? At one point in my career, I was making 50, 40 million, whatever it may be. So that's going to be the key though. It boils down to money if they can keep that team together.
All right. Not a finals question, but I can't talk to Big Shot Bob and not ask you this question. Which of your big shots is your favorite?
I grew up a Lakers fan, a huge Magic Johnson fan. And one of my biggest thrills before I even made to the NBA, I got to play one-on-one with Magic when I was being scouted by the Lakers coming out of college, coming out of University of Alabama. So the shot I made against the Sacramento Kings in 2001 to win that game is probably my favorite. And don't get me wrong, I love what I did in Houston. I love what I did in San Antonio. But everything I did in San Antonio was on the road, game 5 on the road. But this was at home in Staples Center. And the ego comes into play where you want to hear that crowd chant your name, man. And you run off the court and the crowd's still chanting your name. You in the locker room, you can still hear them chanting your name. So I think that shot, it takes over all the other shots just for the ego. You know, all as athletes got some type of ego. And I think for me, that just takes over because I had the Laker fans chanting my name. They wasn't chanting Shaq. They wasn't chanting Kobe. They were chanting Horry. So that's a big plus for me.